So this is CJ Baker, and this is episode 20 of the ongoing history of protest music, the companion podcast to the website ongoing history of protest songs.com. So my special guest is Kaston Guffey, who's a songwriter and lead singer for the Americana band My Politic. They have recently recorded and soon will be releasing a political protest EP called Short-Sighted People in Power. So thanks for being here, Kaston.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So we're doing this over Zoom, so we are definitely social distancing. So how have you been making out with the pandemic?
Oh, we live in Nashville, and I live with my girlfriend and my bandmate, and we've been kind of just hunkered down. We call our house the Mad Valley Lodge. It's we do a house concert series once a month here. We did before the pandemic started. And we'd have all our friends over and have a couple of acts play. And so it's been kind of a huge bummer in that department because that's usually our connection to the outside world in a lot of ways is having a bunch of people come over and get together around, different kinds of music and stuff. So in that regard, it's been, pretty sad, and we're all musicians, so we haven't been able to play shows or anything like that. We've done a few live streams here and there and things like that, but for the most part, we're just holed up. We're trying to stay safe and healthy and not try to spread this stuff around.
Yeah, and I guess it's somewhat convenient to have a bandmate in the same house with you.
It did make making this album a lot easier. Us just being in the same place and sharing the same space and everything like that, for sure.
Yeah, good. So we mentioned the band name is My Politic. So why was that name chosen?
Well, it's funny. The longer I go through life, I kind of start realizing more and more why it happened. But Nick and I started playing music together in Ozark, Missouri. We grew up in Ozark, Missouri together, Southwest Missouri. And we played in a couple of different high school bands. But when we were maybe 14 or 15, I started writing a lot, and we started playing songs together, just playing music together. And eventually we started singing a lot more together and all that. But I named that, it was totally random. I thought it would be funny, to be honest. Like, I thought it would be kind of just a joke. I was 14, But now, seeing as how things have turned, it weirdly has more of an impact, I guess, or something. I don't know.
Yep. So I guess at the time it wasn't a political statement.
No, I was just being kind of a dummy, like being a kid, just thinking it would be funny for people to say, my politics sucks, I just thought that. Now it's like, everything's kind of taken a turn, and we've made this EP, So.
Now it's almost the perfect band name with.
Right, it worked out great. Yeah.
And in connection with that, you are going to be releasing the album Short-Sighted People in Power, which I know will be receiving wide release on October 30th.
Yeah.
So what was the motivation behind that album?
Well, the way it started was I had written, there's a song on there called The Wrong Side, and I had written maybe 2 verses of that song right after Charlottesville happened, and the president said, basically said that Nazis were perfectly fine people, and it just blew my mind. So I had started writing that song, and I think maybe one other song, and without any plan other than just like I needed to put some of this stuff on paper because it just seemed like it was crazy,
Yeah.
And so that probably happened, I think, in 2018. I never played them out or anything. And then when the pandemic hit, we actually have, 20 or 30 songs for another album that wasn't going to be political or anything like that. And we had just started kind of the planning process of making a new album. And then the pandemic hit, and it kind of made it a lot harder to do that. So basically I thought, oh, well, maybe I can write 2 or 3 songs that are current, topical songs, and we can just put it out as a little project, while we're all in quarantine kind of thing. Well, what started, so we started recording one song at a time, and then, and then George Floyd was murdered. And 2 days after that, I wrote that song, All American Way. Kind of just, it all fell out. I basically just started thinking about all of the unarmed Black people I've seen in videos on the news getting killed by the police. So every line in that song is in reference to one of those videos,
Yep.
And so that all kind of fell out, and then everything just kept happening. Like the summer just kept getting kind of crazier and crazier in it, and I wrote, and then I was watching the Kentucky primary with Charles Booker. He's like a progressive that was trying to defeat Amy McGrath up there, and there were just these crazy long lines, and everything that had happened to Stacey Abrams in Georgia and Brian Kemp. And so I just sat and wrote voter suppression, like from the perspective of Mitch McConnell and the Republicans, like what they would do behind the scenes, the celebration of keeping people from voting and stuff like that. So it just all kind of happened. It was kind of all snowballed until the last song I wrote was the Talkin' RNC Blues, and I was like, I think that might be it for me. I can't do this. I can't write any more songs about this right now. So we just kind of buttoned it up, and we actually just recorded it in Nick's bedroom. We borrowed some really nice mics from our friend Kevin Harper, who ended up mixing and mastering it, and we just threw up a couple of mics and tried to capture these songs as rawly as possible.
Yeah, so I know one thing you mentioned during all email communication was that basically the idea is it's good if you can listen to the album as a whole.
Yes.
So that's something you want to expand on?
Yeah, I think it ended up being kind of a conceptual album, just because of everything's kind of tied together in some way. It felt impossible to do it all in one song, certainly, and so all these instances kept happening, and for my peace of mind, I would hope that everybody listens to it from front to back contextually, and understands that it's what I'm trying to do is kind of explain the situation. You know what I mean? Like kind of, there's just so much gaslighting and lying happening that it felt necessary to just write about what I'm looking at. You know what I mean? And so in that way, it feels like important to me for people to understand that it is meant to be a kind of long piece of art, 27 minutes all total, and it's like supposed to be a little snapshot of the anger and division and mistrust and all of that stuff.
Yep, the songs do definitely interconnect. Like it works well as a cohesive whole. So I definitely encourage my listeners to listen to it that way, because sometimes there is a tendency, especially right now with streaming, you make your Spotify playlist, and so even though the songs you might be able to enjoy on their own, it would almost be like watching just a 2-minute scene of a movie.
Exactly.
So you can enjoy that scene, but you're not going to get the whole picture.
Right. I think that, especially there's a couple of songs on there that if they were listened to in isolation, I feel like it wouldn't do them justice, and it certainly would confuse. It may not confuse people, but it would. There's just context to the entire thing. I think that's important, because this is a lot of complicated subject matter, and I think it's possible to distill it all down into 3.5 minutes.
Yeah, but definitely. And I think that's the one thing, the songs do build upon each other, to the fact that when you get to the end, which is a really good satirical song, but you also have a mission statement at the end, encouraging
Right.
people to vote and a call to action,
right,
which is definitely a fitting way to conclude.
yeah. I tried to book in, like, the first song, Short-Sighted People in Power, is kind of a song for, like, the people like me. I'm 30, people are 30 and younger are kind of tired of seeing people just sell things out for some short-term solution, some short-term gain for themselves. That's what I find infuriating. And so it's just crazy, with climate change and gun violence and all these things, that, it's impossible to do anything about them when you've got literally half of the political structure in this country doesn't believe the science.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Of climate change, or can't get out from under gun lobbyists to do anything with teeth. I mean, these things are killing people, and I just find that to be, it's just crazy. So yeah, I tried to bookend this. That's a very serious song, that first song, and then at the end, it's just like, God damn, guys, we gotta get rid of these people.
Yeah, that's the bottom line.
Yeah, and I wanted to, in that song particularly, I wanted to kind of go after the next in line, people like Tom Cotton and Cruz and Matt Gaetz, like these guys that are going to take on the mantle of Trumpism and try to carry it into the future. I wanted to go after those people a little bit too, just because it's such a terrible idea.
Yeah, because removing Trump doesn't necessarily remove those ideas.
Right, exactly. Because they didn't start with him. He's just what I mean, from my understanding, like I grew up in Southwest Missouri. I grew up in the Bible Belt. I grew up in ultra conservative part of the country. And I grew up when I went to work with somebody, 9 times out of 10, what was playing in their truck or playing in their car was talk radio, super talk, Rush Limbaugh, Mark Levin, Sean Hannity, and all that stuff used to be fringe, like it wasn't fringe in my community, but I mean, I think as on the whole, like like nationally, it kind of was it was kind of a fringe, like they were spouting their hatred and vitriol towards people, and average Joe got in his truck and listened to it and got mad and it got people to vote. And so I get it, but now it's like it's taken a whole new life with Trump in the White House, basically megaphoning some of these fringe ideas. I don't know. It's a weirdly dangerous time, I think, for the truth and for honesty and stuff. So.
Yeah. And I think even in connection with that, like you mentioned, the background of where you grew up, and I think a big chunk of the audience for your type of music tends to lean conservative. But I noticed there's a trend now that there's more Americana type artists that are speaking out, through song or through interviews or social media statement. Inevitably, they seem to face at least some backlash. So is that something you've ever experienced or worried about experiencing?
Well, to be honest, the only, our name suggests that I get political, and I think all the writing that I've ever done before this, we put out 7 albums before this, and I would write about like certain things that were personal to me that were going on, that friends that had been addicted to heroin and opiates and stuff like that. That's a big deal. Things like that going on where we grew up and stuff. And I think, like, I've always known that all that stuff is connected, to who we put in power and stuff like that. I just never wrote about it in that way. And in this moment, it just seems impossible to not write about that for myself. So I don't, as far as backlash is concerned, I mean, I think it's inevitable that people are going to get mad or be upset with me, but I don't have any, they're already that way.
Yeah.
They're already against the things that I believe anyway. So to me, putting it into music and putting it into songs is, I don't have anything else I couldn't think of any other things to write about.
Yeah.
Because the story is this, there is nothing else this important. So in my view, it just seems inevitable. And I think I'm not going to be alone, certainly. I'm not, I mean, people are already writing this stuff, but I think there's about to be a flood of this kind of material.
Like it's going to continue to increase.
I think so.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing, like this shut up and sing audience. They don't realize what is a songwriter supposed to sing about.
Correct.
He sings about what's happening in his world.
Yeah. And
so
I
some
think
of it might be personal, some of it might be political, but that's
it's
part of art.
Correct. I think, I mean, I know everybody that I hang out with down here is a songwriter. And I know that it might be hard for certain kinds of people or certain people in certain positions to like make the decision to release something, but everybody's writing about it. I mean, it would be crazy if you wouldn't be living in reality if you weren't at least, toying with some ideas about it. So, I mean, to me, like, it makes perfect. I mean, I don't have any issue with people getting upset because I don't see how they aren't already.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Me putting it to music, I'm not sure is going to make them any more mad at me.
Yeah. I guess that's the thing you mentioned, that I guess some of your songs in the past might have a degree of social awareness, but I guess this is the first time you got directly political.
This is like a overtly on purpose political, because I felt like there's so many facets to what we're watching that it needed to be documented in this way. I mean, I think I spent the first 3 months of this quarantine kind of obsessively listened to Randy Newman.
He has some good political satire.
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, and the ability that he has that I find so fascinating is to take on a character that isn't trustworthy, but also just isn't a good person,
Yeah.
And it felt like that knowledge and that ability, like I used, or I tried to channel that in the fantasies of a Fox News viewer, because it seemed like the only way to really do it for me, And that one is one that I wouldn't want anybody to listen to out of context, because it could be confusing. But I mean, I think contextually it is a satire in the way that,
if you get someone that doesn't realize it's a satire. That could be a thing with Randy Newman. He has some songs that, if you don't realize the context,
right?
If you realize the context, then it's like, okay, this is a powerful political statement.
And I think doing that kind of thing for myself has opened up so many avenues. I can hold a lot more ideas in my mind in it that I could maybe take in that direction now. Whereas before it was just like, that was kind of a blank space, Yeah. So but again, I have no idea how any of this is going to get taken, really. I mean, I just don't. I mean, which is
so worry about it, just put it out there. And
to me, I mean, I am excited about it in some way, because hopefully the best thing that can happen, I think, is that, people feel inclined to do it more, the create. If somebody listens to it that I know that writes songs, that they get inspired to try to channel that, I think that's a great thing. So hopefully that's what's going on.
Yeah. So you mentioned Randy Newman. Do you have any other musical influences?
I mean, Randy Newman's my hero right now.
Okay.
It has been for a while, but I just love his original stuff from the 70s, and Sail Away is like a perfect album, I think.
Yeah.
But even the new one, Dark Matter, is really something. Different subject matter, but some of the stuff that he's written on that, the different familial, like family kind of trauma and stuff like that he explores there is fantastic. But I mean, yeah, the first album of this material that I ever became obsessed with was Times They Are Changing, that Bob Dylan album.
Yeah, that's classic.
Yeah, when I was like 15, I remember I bought it on vinyl, and I would sit in my room and I'd listen to it over and over and over and over again. And I'd read through it, and it just, that album is full of songs that I think about The Lonesome Death of Hattie Carroll often, because that narrative is so good, like the way every verse ends with like, hey guys, it's all going to be taken care of by the system. We have faith in the and then at the end when he's like, bury your rag deep in your face, it's like, that's what's happening.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, as far as political stuff, Nina Simone, oh my gosh,
she's brilliant.
Yeah, I've been listening to a ton of Nina Simone, which is something I never hit me the way that it's hit me in the last year. Woody Guthrie is obviously very good at. Woody Guthrie is probably, as far as the structure of the thing, I think that's probably the most direct line, because I think that's what he was very good at, was writing about what's literally happening on the ground and making it interesting and kind of like, it's almost like journalism, but not quite.
Yeah, and even like his Dust Bowl Ballads was like the first political concept album.
Right, exactly. And I think like that kind of willingness and understanding to like look at what's going on around you and literally just write it down, I think is amazing,
Yeah. I also noticed on your wall you got John Prine as well.
Well, John Prine is probably he's probably my favorite songwriter.
Yeah, I guess he's not always viewed as political, but he did have some good social commentary, especially on his debut album.
Oh my gosh, that album! Your Flag Decal Won't Get You Into Heaven Anymore is like, whew, that's a classic, man. Actually, I wrote. There's a song on this album called "The Experts Told Us," and the chorus is, "Everybody knows somebody that died who could have lived." And I was thinking about him when I wrote that line, because he lives in town, or he lived in town, and I'd met him a couple times, and he's just a big hero of mine, and it was just so sad when we found out that he died, and so I listened to a bunch of his stuff right after that, and that song kind of came out of the blue, and I was thinking about him, just because it didn't have to happen, Yeah. It's just so sad.
Yep,
but yeah, John Prine is a huge influence. Probably, I think I've probably probably the biggest influence on our music for sure. Like outside of this album, like I think he probably tells a story better than anybody, or as good as anybody.
Yep, you had a knack for that.
Yeah, he did.
Good. So before we conclude, is there anything else you want to plug or say?
No, other than it's going to be available on Bandcamp this Friday, and then everywhere it'll be wide release on all streaming platforms on the 30th. I hope people, if nothing else, I hope people appreciate the effort, because it was really hard to do, but I'm very excited to have done it, and I hope people appreciate and understand the wholeness of it,
Yep, so I definitely recommend that the listeners check that out. And is there any place they could follow you on social media or anything like that? Or
please. Facebook is facebook.com/mypoliticmusic. Instagram is instagram.com. And then it's my_politic, and that's the same on Twitter. And I think that's it. We also have a Patreon account if anybody into that. It's just patreon.com/mypoliticmusic. But yeah, follow us on social media. We'll be posting a bunch about this, and you get to see the artwork. I want to mention the artwork is awesome, and it was done by an amazing woman that we know out of Knoxville, Tennessee, and her name is Hannah Bingham, and she did an incredible job.
So we definitely encourage our listeners to check that out, check out the album, and check out the social media as well. And they're definitely going to be a powerful listen. So I definitely recommend it. So thank you again, Kaston. I definitely enjoyed our discussion.
Chris, thank you so much for doing what you're doing, man. I think it's awesome, and I will definitely tell people to check it out.